Ladies, gentlemen, and of course everybody between, welcome back to At a Spec Renew. I'm your host, as always, Declan Cav, and you join me up here just outside of Fort Collins on a dairy farm where we have this. Now, this might not look like much, but this is a ground-up electric delivery van built by Boulder Electric Vehicles, which is a now-defunct company. And this is what you might consider a barn find. This was sitting on the side of the road for a little while after it died. And so we're up here with some of the engineers who worked for Boulder Electric Vehicles, and we're gonna see if we can't get this thing going again. So yeah, huge thanks to these engineers for letting me film. I'm not gonna be doing much of the engineering myself, but I'll be observing and seeing if we can figure out what is this vehicle and if we can't get the vehicle running again. And it smells like cows up here. So could you tell us who you are and what your connection to these vehicles are?
I'm Zach Tyler, and my connection to the vehicles was that this was a vehicle that I designed for Boulder Electric Vehicle. And yeah, that process started, I don't know, 18 years ago almost was the beginning of that process. Yeah.
So you guys built these vehicles from the ground up to be electric delivery vans?
Yep.
Very cool. And obviously, based on the name, it was located here in Boulder, Colorado.
Yep. Yeah, Lafayette. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So were you in charge of the electrical systems in the car, or what was your job on developing?
I was the chief designer. So
everything?
Yeah, everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I was the first employee of the company.
Wow.
Yep, back in the day.
So
yeah.
you were one of the original people. So you're here. Obviously, Boulder Electric Vehicle Company doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think it exists as an entity, though not producing anything like that.
Which is too bad. So what year was this car made in?
You know, actually, it'd be kind of fun to just look at the VIN on this one and see. This is July 2012.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So what's that? Over a decade old now. Yeah, because 2024, so 12 years old.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the EV stuff. So
yeah.
It was like, you know, this, you can see this vehicle has, it's a lot of component build.
Yep.
You know, so cobbling to, you know, finding elements in the world, battery management systems, and, you know, this has got like an almost industrial AC drive that was sort of repurposed.
Yeah, the Azure Dynamic system,
yeah.
And then you got the Orion BMS off the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you were mentioning, and this is a first-gen vehicle, you were saying.
This is actually would be considered a second gen. So
okay.
there was one that was like a real one-off, and you know, it was kind of the owner's first stab at doing a vehicle. Then we completely redesigned it with the totally new cosmetics, and everything's different on this vehicle. The only thing that's the same is this Azure Dynamics air-cooled drive.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, we even modified that and turned it into a liquid-cooled drive by machining the heat sink.
That's impressive.
Off. So it was all air-cooled. So we kind of modded it, and then the third gen was actually a UQM drive, and that was really dialed in.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a system that I'm overly familiar with. I don't know if you know, UQM actually made a car themselves back in the 80s.
I do, the Electrek.
I own two of them.
Yeah.
So that's a system. And then I actually owned a 2012 Coda EV as well, which ran on the UQM PowerPhase Pro 100s.
Yep.
So yeah, great system. And I know the Azure Dynamic systems. If anybody watches my personal channel, we reviewed a Ford Transit Connect Electric that was running an Azure Dynamic system. So yeah, it's interesting to see all the off-the-shelf parts, like just like the fact that it's running an Orion system is something really cool, and something that you see a lot of in startup companies. So this uses LFP.
Yeah.
And what's the capacity?
It's 360 volts, 200 amp hours, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I think the pack capacity was like 72 kilowatt hours.
Okay. That's a pretty good system. And what
Yeah.
range would you kind of expect from this car?
Normal, kind of not super hilly driving, you know, like just little rolling hills, was probably 120 miles.
Very respectable, yeah.
Yeah, for a delivery truck, not too bad.
Yeah, and then circling back around, because I forgot to ask about this. So this car was kind of sitting on the side of the road for a while. Do you know how long it was sitting on the side of the road?
You know, Brian said it was driving until about 5 years ago. Yeah.
And then it just stopped and they left it on the side of the road?
Yeah, I mean, it was just parked over in the parking lot here. And yeah, I mean, essentially though, it's been unsupported.
Yeah.
So the company closed their doors about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, whatever it was doing it by itself.
Well, hopefully we can look into the battery pack, and I say we, I mean you, because you know way more about Orion systems than I do, and I'm here just for the fun of it.
Nice.
I enjoy looking at stuff like this, and it's not very rare you find a barn find electric car. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this looks like it's been in a barn too. It's got
it smells like it too.
It's got the hay to prove it. And
Yep. Got the
mice look like
the
they've
most
had
literal
some fun.
form of barn I guess you can find.
Right.
Cows in the background. Now, before I got here, they were actually able to get the car to turn on, which is impressive in itself. However, we're getting some strange readings from the battery pack in terms of voltage, but luckily, super easy to look into because this car uses an Orion BMS system. We just got the software downloaded, and we're gonna see what we can see inside the battery pack to see if we can't get this thing to have normal voltage readings. Now, like I said, the first thing we wanted to do was get an idea of the condition of the battery pack, and to do this we needed to communicate with the BMS, or the battery management system. To do this, we needed to find the hookup for the CAN lines. The CAN lines are essentially the way that all the electronics inside the car communicate with each other, and in this case, the way that the car communicates with our laptop. However, this proved to be a little bit more difficult than we initially thought because we didn't actually know where the hookup for the CAN communication was. But after some trial and error, we finally found it.
You can see the weak cells. So this is an unsupported 10-year-old pack that's just been basically doing whatever it's doing. I think they, like I said, maybe it's been 5 years since they messed with it. So right now, first thing, these are literally reading open, which I don't know if that's detecting zero resistance in the cell or how it flags that, but it's either nothing or it's some resistance consideration. So I'm just going to clear all this for the hell of it.
See what pops back up.
I think let's see. Low cells. So it's got 112 low cells is what it says immediately, which is interesting. And actually, if you look at the SOC, that did some things. So SOC it's actually tracking. I wonder, do you want to plug it in real quick and just see what happens? I wonder if the cells are so low that it's like not recognizing it or something. Oh. Yeah, the cells may be, so all the cell data just popped up. So the cells are literally so low that they're not enough to register. So at a volt, let's see, where's our low cell, high cell? Okay, I mean, that's interesting in and of itself. So now that at least we can see what the cell voltage is, we can kind of eyeball it and see if anything goes nuts. I would expect trouble. You could get very lucky. Iron phosphate's pretty resilient.
So essentially what we did was we overrode the safety systems implemented by the BMS to force the car to take a charge. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wait and see if the cells come up to an acceptable voltage, and then we can identify any bad cells. This is not something you should do if you don't know what you're doing, because this could easily result in thermal runaway.
I mean, I have literally, during our testing of LFP cells, we took a nail gun and shot it into the battery, and it still didn't.
They're pretty stable,
Yeah.
and especially at a low state of charge, they're going to have a pretty high threshold before you hit thermal runaway. It does seem like the highest cells are plateauing at 2.7, 2.8, which is pretty promising.
It's interesting because most of them that I see are over 2.7. There's a few in the 2.6s, but then there's like, where is the 2.14? Where's that?
I see a 2.2 over there. Oh, never mind. I just went up to 2.4.
Where was that?
That was row 9 at the bottom.
This row?
Yep, all the way at the bottom.
Oh, there it
but
is.
it did pop back up to
Interesting.
2.4.
Okay, so that's now our low cell.
Yep. Okay, so I think that is the low cell, but it seems like it could come back because everything else is reading pretty promising.
Is it sensible to stop charge just for a sec? I don't know that it's going to be happy no matter what we do.
I'm betting the
But-
voltage is going to drop when we unplug.
It's probably worth it to check. Do you want to? Let's see what happens.
All right, unplugging to see what happens to our voltages. You unplugged? Okay, not an immediate drop. Oh, our low cell dropped real low. So we plugged the car back in, and I know it's not very easy to see the voltages on the screen, but 109 is briefly becoming our highest cell, which you might initially think might be a good thing, but that is probably not a good thing, and kind of suggests that that cell is probably bad.
Just because it was the lowest.
Yeah, just because it's going from super low to super high.
Yeah.
But you guys did kind of suggest the option of, since it's very far at the end of the pack, it could just be jumpered off and have a slightly lower voltage but not significantly worse battery pack to get the car back to mint condition, if you will.
Yeah. The peak is, in the 360s, so to lose 3.6 volts off the top of that, no big deal.
Yeah, and like they were mentioning, this car will probably not go back into service for deliveries. They were mentioning they might bring it to farmers markets and stuff like that, so getting it working 100% isn't the biggest deal. Gonna let it sit for a little while longer and see what happens. But all the other cells seem to be coming back very well, surprisingly. I mean, it's lithium iron phosphate, so goes to show how great that chemistry is. So next steps for this car, because it has that low cell, it is deemed unsafe to drive. We would have to override so many of the safety systems. So the next step is going to be dropping the battery pack and likely just removing that one bad cell like we were saying earlier. So hopefully we'll see if we can get an invite back up here when they do drop that battery pack and keep you guys updated, and hopefully in the future you guys can see this car drive. But for today, that's all we can do. Dropping the battery pack is obviously a huge process, but I want to thank the people here for inviting me up, the engineers. Thanks to the people at Morning Fresh Dairy Farm for allowing me to film. And yeah, super excited to see where this car goes next, and hopefully, like I said, once that battery pack is getting dropped, we'll come back up and make a video with that. That's going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing and leaving a comment. I do read every comment, even the mean ones, and I do cry. Just another huge thanks to everyone here for letting me join in. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. Love ya. All right, they got cows here. Let's see if we can interview one. I'm not getting any closer. I'm actually scared of cows.